thank you, Rebecca, for sharing with us how this incredible technology innovations and complex data analysis really does improve the lives of an underserved community right here in the U.S. So now we're going to move from big city New York to big city Delhi. And before I bring up Nikit, do you have... there we go. There's a lot of talk in the U.S. about India and how they are contributing to global warming, which this cartoon that I got from the Times of India puts a different spin on it, that this is a no-smoking zone. But I'm here to tell you that Nikit Abhyankar has some very encouraging words on this very topic, and related to India's contribution to global warming, as its people also seek to improve their lives with new technologies, which result in increased energy consumption. And his encouraging news that just as India has leapfrogged in the telecommunications world, skipping the landlines and going straight to deep proliferation of cellular phones, they're well positioned to do just the same with energy, leapfrogging the dirty, unclean fuels that we have used in the past and moving straight to clean power. With some exciting news from Nikit, I guess I should tell you what he does. He's a smart guy, like all these people. He's had a PhD from Stanford, and he's now at Lawrence-Berkeley Labs, where he leads the power sector research. And when he's not busy researching the latest trends in energy policies and programs, he's also a great outdoors enthusiast and enjoys getting outside whenever he can. With that, Nikit. Or, I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Nikit.
That's right. Thank you very much. It's Nikit. No. So, before I begin, let me just quickly give you some context. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. So there are kind of three major distinguishing factors about India that kind of places it apart from most of the other developing countries. Number one, India has a rapidly growing middle class, where a lot of African or East Asian developing countries lack. The second is most of the energy infrastructure in India is publicly owned, and that has a significant impact on what kind of policies can be implemented. And third is the political establishment in India, especially the current administration, the Modi administration in India, is not really shy of any bold actions, maybe climate, maybe any other economy-wide policies. So this kind of sets India apart, and this has a major bearing on how clean energy is kind of economically desirable and politically feasible in India in the future, and this is what I'm going to talk about. So my argument is going to be this. India's energy consumption is growing rapidly in the next 2 to 3 decades, and this is happening when most of the energy infrastructure is yet to be built, and the clean energy costs have been dropping rapidly. And this is why India can leapfrog. So this shows the vehicle ownership in India, which is an order of magnitude lower than the US and is expected to grow pretty rapidly as middle classes grow in India. And similar to the vehicles, the power sector in India is also kind of 4th or 5th in terms of installed capacity relative to US or China. India only has 200 gigawatts of coal and gas against 800 gigawatts in US roughly, and about 1,000 gigawatts in China. So India is expected to be the largest contributor to the additional energy demand in the next 2 decades, which means India may need $2 trillion of fossil investments in the next 2 decades, and clean energy is becoming increasingly competitive. Right now, India's energy basket is kind of dominated by coal and oil right now. But most of the energy sector, as I mentioned, is owned by the publicly owned companies, which kind of has an interesting advantage of no private sector lobby against clean energy. And this has kind of also resulted in some innovative policies that India has taken. For example, India did an innovative reverse auction for solar that dropped the solar cost by nearly 60 to 70% in 5 years. Similarly, for LEDs, India implemented the largest LED program in the world, 300 million LEDs distributed in 2 years, with prices dropping by 90% or so. So a large part of this cost reduction is driven by policy innovation. And as you know, India has some of the most populous and hottest cities in the world, which increases the cooling and the air conditioning requirement in these cities very, very high. And this is important because China, in their high income growth period, added nearly 200 million air conditioners in a span of 15 to 20 years. And India is exactly on the same path. So this, why the air conditioning load is important, is exactly because of this. One air conditioner consumes more than 1,000 watts at any given point in time. And this is more than double all other typical household appliances combined. So that's why energy of air conditioners is super important. And we estimate in the next 15, 20 years, India will add 150 gigawatts to the peak load because of air conditioners. And this is equivalent to nearly 3 California grids in a span of 15 to 20 years just by one appliance. So not all is bad news. India has already made pretty aggressive commitments on clean energy, so which implies by 2019 they want to sell only LEDs. By 2022, significant expansion of renewable capacity. By 2030, they want to sell only electric cars. And renewable energy in India actually has a distinct advantage, which is significantly better to manage than the renewable energy here in California. So India's wind profile, for example, is diametrically opposite to that of California, which is much better for meeting the demand. So even if India converts all its vehicles to electric vehicles, the additional load on the grid is less than 10%, which the utilities can potentially meet. And electric vehicles also have significant advantage in India. So even if the current Indian grid is coal-dominated, electric vehicles can still result in significant CO2 emission savings. And with newer renewable capacity addition, it will reduce the emissions even further. India doesn't have nearly 200 million people in India does not have access to electricity. And with super efficient appliances, only 25 watts can power an entire house, which essentially needs a 40-watt solar panel and a small laptop-sized battery. So in conclusion, India can leapfrog to a clean energy future, and in addition to the emissions reduction that we talked about, it can create significant co-benefits, for example, avoiding foreign oil imports or enhancing the air quality in the Indian cities. Thank you.